before we get going. We've got a little poll for you guys to see who's been on here before potentially. Hopefully you're enjoying the weather, right? It's saying 26 degrees on my watch, but I know that potentially it's not all about London today in the session, so we'll get involved in that. Tia, I can see you now. That's great. Thanks very much. Okay, good stuff. So I'm going to end that poll. Let me just have a little look at some of the results, and I'll just share them with you guys so you can see them too. So what year group have we got today? 64% are year 12s who are on here on time. Often people do join a little bit later, so no worries about that, but well done for getting here on time. A few year 13s as well. Have you been on any of the A&O webinars so far? We've got 24% have been on all of them. Well done, guys. That's amazing. 48% haven't, and 28% have. That's good. Have you been to any of these places before? Dubai. 16% have been to Dubai. That's amazing. And 4% have been to New York. The majority, including me actually, have been to neither. So there we go. It's good to see who's on the session today, and welcome to our session with Allen Overy. This is the third session that we've had with them. Previously we've done we've had a look into technology within the firm. Last week we looked into different roles, and this week we're continuing that theme in looking into key departments within Allen Overy. So I hope that you enjoy the session today. We'll be finished by 3 o'clock latest, if not slightly before, depending on how many questions we get today. So I'm just going to share with you how to communicate. You guys who have been on my webinars before, we'll quickly go through it. But those of you that haven't been on, just so you know how to communicate through Zoom. Most of you are probably using it on your laptops, some of you on your phones. If you are on your phone, it means that you can't do this bit. You can't actually speak over your phone, whereas you can do that on your laptop. So you have different functions available. If you want to raise your hand, I can unmute you and let you speak. If you want to ask any questions, pop those in the Q&A box, and that's what I look at to make sure that I try and get through all the questions. But if you do want to speak to the panelists yourself, put your hand up and I'll let you speak. You can jump the queue. Chat box is just for anything ad hoc that's not a question or yourself raising your hand. So Q&A box is what you want to be thinking of today in terms of the questions that you might have. So Allen Overy, legal practice, big successful law firm. As you can see there, 40 offices around the world, 5,400 employees, 2,300 lawyers, which is really interesting for today. Next week, by the way, guys, we're speaking to graduate trainees, so be a bit more focused on the lawyer front. But today we're exploring further into, you know, what does that make up of that 5.4K employees that aren't lawyers potentially. Partners sit at the top of the tree. I'm not sure if anyone wants to share any stories today about partners or a little bit more about what that means. But I just want to give a shout out to Sue, who I know isn't going to speak up at the beginning because we've got so much to get through. But Sue's the one that made this happen for Allen Overy in her community investment role at the company. If you've got any questions about that, do put them in the Q&A box, and Sue can definitely speak throughout the session if she wants to, and we need her to. So today's session. We are going to be going into introductions from the team to start with. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people who are contributing towards the session today. So Charlotte, I'll hand over to you to start with.
Great, thanks Chris. Hi everyone. It's really odd not being able to see everyone that's dialed in. So hi everyone. I'm Charlotte. I work in the AOsphere team and I work in business development. I'm normally based in London, but just before coronavirus, I moved to New York. So I'm currently in New York, not that you can tell from my background, which is just very plain and boring. And I moved here to help develop AOsphere. So just to describe what AOsphere is and what I do, AOsphere is a part of the law firm that productizes certain topics of law. So it's kind of selling to clients off-the-shelf legal packages. And my role is to connect clients from all around the world, currently in America, because that's where I'm based, with those products. So it's developing the business and helping to create new products, but it's also a bit of a sales role. My job is to talk to clients, introduce them to AOsphere, tell them about Allen Overy, and hope that they subscribe to some of our products. And in terms of kind of how I've landed in New York. I'm still not really sure, but how I kind of joined the team. I didn't start out wanting to be a BD manager in a law firm. I actually wanted to be a vet. And then I did work experience and I kept fainting. So that I realised that that wasn't for me. But I did study law at university. I worked with people who didn't study law. I worked with someone who has a sales background. Someone else in our team worked as a sports psychology type role before they joined Aosphere. But the reason that I got this role was that I started working in a law firm, was really interested in the kind of future of law. So commoditizing, productizing, putting law online and making it more accessible. And then it just kind of grew from there. So that was quite a long introduction. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or...
That's brilliant, Charlotte. And questions will be on a couple of slides, but I do think, and if I were you guys, I'd write down your questions whenever you hear them speak and just think who you want to ask the question to. And then put in the Q&A box. This one's for Charlotte. Could you tell me a little bit more about X? I think that's really interesting. And remember, students on this webinar are thinking, some of them want careers as lawyers, some of them are just interested in Allen Overy and the session today. But I reckon if you're going for those interviews to get into Allen Overy or like firms, knowing this sort of level of detail about what goes on is so amazing. So thanks so much, Charlotte. Nikki, over to you.
So I am a senior BD business development manager at A&O, but I have a slightly different job than most of the BD managers in that I focus on diversity and inclusion. And so what's that? So I'm delighted for a start that this panel is made up of entirely women apart from Chris. So what I do is try and make sure that Allen and Overy, in the way that we work with our clients, are diverse. And that means how many women, how many people from ethnic minorities, how many people from different kinds of backgrounds, different faiths, that kind of thing, do we put into our teams? Because we know, and the world now knows, because there's loads of evidence to prove it, that having diverse teams gives better results. It makes you better at innovation, it makes you better at problem solving, it makes you better at risk management, that kind of thing. So we want to give our clients the best teams that we can. So I help make sure that within A&O that we are putting a diverse team forward to work with our clients. But I also work directly with our clients to say, how can we work together to make that diversity work? Or where are you struggling to become a more diverse organisation? Because I'm sure some of you will be thinking, why on earth do we need that? You know, we get on with everyone and it's fine. But actually, some parts of the business world, or most parts of the business world, actually have still got a way to go around diversity. So our clients are the same. So it might be that we say, okay, one of our clients wants to get more women into senior positions, and I will work with them to say, okay, well, we want to do the same. How do we work together to help achieve our mutual objectives? So so it's quite a sort of defined role, and I work with a lot of the other business development managers to kind of fit in and make sure that we're aligned. But I've come via a kind of long route into this job. I started as a journalist and always kind of moved from something I didn't really like doing anymore. I took the best bits and kind of moved on to the next one. So my career's been quite a journey working with different organisations doing very different things. But what came through to me increasingly was that I was really interested in people and how to make teams work and how to make sure that everything was fair. So, you know, clearly not fair if women or BAME people or LGBT people are not given absolute fair access to everything that anybody else would be. So that's kind of what motivates me, and I just want to be able to kind of contribute in that way.
That's brilliant. And really quickly, Nikki, did you go to university, I wonder?
I did, but I grew up in rural Gloucestershire. I went to the local comprehensive and I did go to university. I'm not sure that I still would, but at the time it's what everybody did, and I did enjoy it. So, you know, I've got something from it.
Great.
I studied English.
Studied English. Thanks so much, Nikki. Harriet, over to you, please.
Great, thanks, Chris. So I am also a senior business development manager. I think hopefully what you might pick up from today is that even though we might all have business development in our titles, it tends to mean something quite different depending on the team that you work with. So I work exclusively with the litigation and investigations group. So that essentially means anything that a business or a company executive could do to get into trouble. So anything that might land you in court or with a big fine or even in prison. So that's the kind of thing that I focus on, and that means that you have to approach it slightly differently than you would maybe in some other practice groups that might be more driven by deals and transactions, so mergers and acquisitions, that kind of thing. Litigation has a slightly different focus, so you have to approach things a little differently. In terms of my sort of journey to get here, so I graduated in 2010, and that was still in sort of recession times, and it meant that a lot of the options that were open to graduates weren't, frankly. So I just took the first office job I could, which happened to be in admin in a sort of investor relations consultancy in the city of London, and they offered me a marketing role after about, actually not very long, maybe a month, and it sort of went from there really. So I think, as with a lot of things, it somewhat happened by accident. So I've been working in law firms for almost 8 years now, with Allen Overy actually only for 6 months, so still quite new. And in my previous firm, I worked both in London and in Washington DC, so also in the US. So I've had some quite broad exposure. In terms of so I went to Manchester University and I studied classics. So nothing directly related, which again, I think probably will be a bit of a trend in this group maybe.
Well, it's good to hear. Open up opportunities. And guys, questions are coming in already, which is brilliant. We're going to do the introductions, then we'll come to questions in a second. So moving on to Marlena, please. Thanks. Marlena, unmute yourself. I can maybe help. Yeah, there we go.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So my name is Marlena. I'm originally from Finland, from a tiny little village of 6,000 people, and currently living in Dubai. I've been here for 5 years now, 5.5. And I'm a BD manager for the banking department here in the Middle East. And banking, like litigation, is another practice area for Allen Overy. I think it's the biggest one, so an amazing opportunity to kind of steer the flagship practice of an international magic circle law firm, so yay for that. My journey to this point was not the most straightforward one. After high school, I faffed around for a couple of years, traveled and kind of tried to find my way. I did a degree in linguistics, but figured out that no one is really interested in paying you money for Sumero-Akkadian cuneiformic writing. So had to find a plan B. I did another degree in political science and international relations. And after my master's, applied and got into the diplomatic training program with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Which, was a dream come true for me. I was like, yeah, the world is my oyster. But within a very short time, like 9 months, I realized that it wasn't the right place for me. Mainly due to the fact that it's unfortunate to say, but when people have steady jobs and they know that that no one's gonna fire you until you want to retire, it really doesn't encourage people to be better, do better, and exceed themselves. So I found myself in a wrong place, had a bit of an existential crisis, and took a job in a law firm as a PA. And like Harriet, very quickly afterwards, found myself doing communications and marketing. And that was back in Cyprus, where my first posting as an attaché was. Yeah, so yeah, and then we moved to Dubai with my husband about 5.5 years ago, and here I am.
And did you get the job when you were in Dubai?
Yes, so I've been with A&O for about 7-8 months now.
Okay, sure.
Before that, I was in another law firm here in Dubai.
Cool. Well, it's good to know. Multinational firm. So there are the opportunities, I suppose. Thanks very much, Marlena. And Tia, over to you. Oh, sorry, Tia. We're just going to have to unmute you. Sorry, Tia. There we go, Tia. Over to you.
Sorry. So I'm Tia. So I sit next to Marlena. So a little bit about me. I work as a client relationship manager. I'm based in Dubai. So how did I get here? So I did a business degree in Melbourne, Australia. And my first role out of university, I worked in finance. I probably did that for about 4 weeks. Realized I hated finance because I was writing business reports every day. I encouraged 6 of my best friends at the time to quit their jobs that they also hated and to take a gap year with me to travel around Europe. So I took a year off with my best friends. We spent the whole time traveling, and I think it was one of the best experiences that I've had. Came back to Melbourne again, and it was perfect timing because it was the global financial crisis. So that's when I was looking for my first full-time role. After that, I had a very traditional first marketing role where I worked at Campbell Soups and a biscuit firm called Arnott's. And again, in the same way that Marlena mentioned, wasn't really challenged. I was doing that for about 2 years and then was thinking about a change. I saw the marketing role for a law firm and I thought, why not? 12 years later, I'm still here. So my role is quite diverse. I work across different products, marketing campaigns, events and training, new market research. So it's very diverse. My role is to try and help the firm get new clients and keep existing clients happy, basically, as a client relationship manager.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tia. And do think about your questions for Tia. Jess, last but not least, over to you.
Thank you. So my journey and my story have some synergies with other people's roles. I work as a client development manager within Peerpoint, and that means that I look to understand our clients' needs and help to keep them happy and make sure that the services we're offering are matched to those needs. The particular part of the business within A&O that I work in is called Peerpoint, and Peerpoint is a business like AOsphere, which is part of Allen Overy's advanced delivery and solutions business, which again, from my perspective, it was attractive because it's a future of law type proposition. Peerpoint provides lawyers to clients to support clients at times of high demand, and we promote consultancy or interim legal roles as a career pathway, not as you know, in between jobs, you know, not just doing a short-term role before you find the long-term role that you're looking for. And what we find is lawyers who choose to work in this way have the opportunity to build a different career with really rich experience, but slightly different from a kind of traditional law firm career or in-house lawyer career. So that's the headlines on my role and the part of the business that I work within. My journey has been a long one with A&O. I joined the firm in 2006. I started as a business development manager within litigation, so much like Harriet. And I worked in London and Hong Kong in that role, and then moved across to do a client relationship management role for the firm, and then saw how interested clients were in Peerpoint, and so chose to make the transition across to work within Peerpoint. And at the time when I joined Peerpoint, it was fascinating because it was like a startup business within this large, massive organisation. And so a really different dynamic to my experiences of working within a practice and then centrally managing a group of clients. And that how I ended up at A&O was, I did go to university, and as part of my university degree, I was really excited to do a year in industry. I did that marketing confectionery and ate far too much chocolate along the way on that journey. And enjoyed it, but decided it wasn't for me. I found the pace wasn't quite fitting for what I wanted. I knew I wanted to live in London, and I was speaking to a group of friends and my sister's friends, who my sister's slightly older than me, and one of her friends worked in A&O and told me a lot about A&O and what the opportunities were, and I was keen to have the experience of working abroad, which is one of the big drivers. So yeah, worked in London, went off to Hong Kong for a while, came back to London, and then chose to do different roles along the way. What's been consistent is that all of the roles I've done have focused on clients, so understanding clients' needs and then helping the lawyers to promote themselves to those clients, I think is the kind of strain of consistency. And now my role is much more directly marketing and working and building relationships with those clients.
There we go. It's brilliant. And do have a look at these roles again, guys, just for one last time before we move on. Who would have thought all these roles existed at Allen Overy? I certainly wouldn't have done. And a few themes that I learned from that is, you know, international working and living. You've heard it here first, you know, New York, Melbourne, Dubai, university. Everyone here went to university, but Nikki potentially questioning there whether she would do it if she had the choice. So Nikki, interesting to hear maybe more about that later. You heard about year in industry, gap years and doing masters. So these guys have got a wealth of different experience. So it's all about what questions you really want to ask them now that relates to something that's relevant to you. And I have got a question here, by the way, that says, will there be access to this webinar after the session, as it'll be really helpful for others that I know? Yes, we are going to send this out to everybody this afternoon, the recording of the webinar. So not to worry about that. So there are a few questions on the Q&A box. How this is going to work: we're going to start off with Charlotte, going through what a typical day is and any advice for students. And then any questions for Charlotte, I'm going to ask straight after that. But I'm going to challenge you guys a bit more. So I want to hear your typical day. And actually, there's a really good question here. Bear with me, from Andre, who says, what has been the most memorable event so far working for A&O? So I'm going to put that in there too. Your typical day, most memorable event, and any advice for students. Put you on the spot. Charlotte, over to you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to think about that memorable day.
Maybe we can come back to it.
Okay, so a typical day is quite interesting at the moment because it looks very different to how it would have done a couple of months ago when I was in London and I could see people and talk to them face to face and meet with clients. But a typical day at the moment, I wake up very early at the moment because London, which is where all my colleagues and a lot of my clients still are, is 5 hours ahead. So I wake up early so that I can catch up with all the 5 hours worth of emails and projects that I might be working on with my team, how they have developed. So I have to be quite organised to prioritise my time when I first kind of get online and talk to my colleagues. And then the rest of my day will largely be driven by my client relationships. So I could speak to typically other lawyers who work in organisations like banks or hedge funds. They're the main people that I speak to. I have spoken to some tech companies in Silicon Valley, which is quite exciting. Wow. Talking to them about our products and the legal information that they need. And it could be various conversations that I have with clients as they kind of interact with Allen Overy. They might not have heard of Allen Overy, they might not have heard of AOsphere, so I might have to introduce our law firm, which means that I need to act as a kind of ambassador, the first point of contact for our firm. I need to know enough about the law firm to speak knowledgeably about it. Or they might know our products and they might want to go into some real technical detail, in which case I need to be aware of where my understanding kind of ends, and I might need to rope in some experts, some of the lawyers in our team, to join me on a call or to do a demonstration to a large group of clients. And that's it at the moment. Typically, my day would normally involve meeting clients face to face, which is it's probably the bit of my job that I love the most. I get to go to all these amazing buildings. They're often in skyscrapers. I get to meet lots of different people and understand kind of different requirements. I think in terms of memorable days, I think it has to be moving to New York so far with Allen Overy, because it's exciting and it's scary, and well, especially with coronavirus now, things are shut down, but the office here is kind of one of those dream skyscrapers that you see on films. And that to me has been the most memorable thing so far. And kind of advice for students, I really liked how Nikki described her kind of career journey. And I think it kind of resonated with me that as you do different jobs, try and learn things that you like and things that you don't like about them. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've learned is customer service. It didn't really matter that I learned it working on a checkout. I can still apply things that I've learned along the way in customer facing roles to the job that I do now. You know, if I say to a client, I'll get back to you on that question today, I will get back to them today. So skills around customer service, and I think kind of listening and empathy, emotional intelligence, so that you can really dig deep if a client asks you a question or you ask them a question to find out what's really driving them. Yeah, I think that was...
Thanks, Charlotte. I've just got a question here from Andre for Charlotte. What do you recommend as a replacement for work experience during this period, I guess relating to COVID? Any view on that, Charlotte, I suppose?
That's a really interesting question. I guess a lot of work experience placements are kind of out of the picture if you can't physically go there. So it's going to have to be something that you can do remotely. I don't know whether anything customer facing or client facing that you can do remotely. I think that would probably be my advice. Sorry, that's not great. I'm not really sure on that one.
No, absolutely. No, it's absolutely fine. And I'm gonna move on. Thanks very much, Charlotte. Over to Nikki, please. So in case you don't have it, what does your typical day look like? Most memorable moment and any advice for students?
Okay, so most memorable moment. I haven't been at A&O for that long, so that's kind of limits it a bit. But I think there are two sides of things. One is going out and working with clients, because I love that face-to-face. I love sitting down with people, really trying to understand what they're trying to do with their business and how I can help. But on the other side, I get involved in quite a lot of events that we do. So they can be really interesting. So we had the BBC presenter Nagaman Chetty in a few months ago as part of our Black History Month activity. And then a while ago, we had Professor Green in talking about mental health and things like that. So that kind of thing I think is really interesting, and how you engage people in different ways. So they're the kind of favourite things that I do. So my typical day, I don't really have one. And again, I really like the fact that I haven't got a typical day. I wouldn't want to be sat in an office all the time. So the great thing about my job is that I have to connect with lots of different people within Allen Overy. So I work with lots of people in HR. So the internal D&I team, I work with the recruitment team. This morning, I was at a meeting of our social mobility committee, because that's an area that we're really focused on, and how do we make sure that we are recruiting and retaining a more diverse workforce with lots of different backgrounds. But then I'll be going out to have these meetings with clients, and that's the good thing about my job. It involves many different things, but I think that point around customer service and understanding what the customer needs, that other people have mentioned, I think is really important. My advice, I think the world's in a weird place at the moment, and obviously if you're coming out of school or university within the next few years, there might be particular challenges. I would get a job somewhere that you think you want to work, even if it's not your ideal job. And again, I think what's come through with other people here is that they started off doing something and they moved. And as I said earlier, every single one of the jobs that I've done, I've thought, I don't like that bit, but I like this bit, then I'm going to go and do that. But if you're in a company, you can worm your way in. And I think, you will have to worm your way in. Just whatever the job is, go and volunteer a bit of your time to work with someone, that kind of thing. But you will find it really hard just to apply straight for a job. You've got to be tenacious and fight for it.
And Nikki, I've got one question here saying, what was your interview process like at Allen Overy? Because you did it recently, I'm guessing.
I did.
Does the firm prefer people from Russell Group universities is the question as well?
The answer to that is no. And I think the reality is that we do get people from Russell Group universities. But that's certainly not it's that or nothing. What we're looking for is the people who've got, yes, we've got minimum qualifications, absolutely, but who've got the ability to go on and thrive within the firm. And I think one of the things that we are looking really hard at is how do we look more broadly at students and potentially look at their backgrounds and say, okay, well, where did you come from? You've really succeeded. How do we help do that more? And actually this morning at the Social Mobility Committee meeting, we were talking about one of the good things that's happened about COVID-19 is that everything's gone virtual. And our recruitment people used to do the milk round like lots of people do, which means that only those in that location can go to those sessions. Whereas now, all of our alternative milk round meetings are now being done virtually. So it means that anybody could, who's got an interest in Allen Overy could join those and then absolutely, go through the application process and things like that.
And just one question, you might not be able to answer this, Nikki, but can you give statistics? How many BAME lawyers are employed by Allen Overy?
Oh, do you know what? I can, because I knew that was coming up and I looked it up. So it's it's an easy question to give you the answer, but actually when you scratch the surface, it's not. So if we look at our trainee population, so those that we bring in every year, 32% are from a BAME background. So that is broadly across the population that we would expect it to be. So that's good. Where we're not as good and where we are increasingly focused is as people move through the organisation, unfortunately, some of our BAME population don't stay with us. And actually that's the same for women. We recruit, I think at the moment, it's pretty much exactly 50-50 in terms of males and females coming in. 1 year it might be slightly more than 50 female. The next year might be slightly less, but it's broadly the same. But what we know is that as people move up through the organisation, our diversity gets more challenged. And we are working really, really hard to make sure that that is not the case and being as innovative and thoughtful as we can. So we do a lot of data analysis to really work out where are people kind of falling out of the firm? What programs can we put in place? Because we absolutely want to be diverse throughout the organisation. We've got targets in place to make sure that we're working towards that. But it's a journey. It's a slower one than we would like it to be. But certainly at the kind of entry level, from a BAME lawyer's perspective, that we are representing UK society.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Nikki. And remember, guys, we've got the trainees. We've got a handful of trainees on next week, so do tune in for that one. Harriet, we've got a question here. How does litigation? What does usually happens in litigation? So, what's your typical day? What does it look like? Harriet, there we go.
I'm going to have to be a bit of a parrot. I mean, there isn't really a typical day. Other than actually the last sort of 9 weeks, which have been quite typical in that I've spent a lot of time doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is sitting in my kitchen.
Harriet, sorry, your line's very bad, actually. It's very crackly. I'm not sure if there's something you could do with the microphone. It's just, I don't think we could continue on that level. Should we come back to you and just see if there's anything we can do on that?
Yeah, come back to me.
Yeah, that's no problem. We're going to move on to Marlena, if that's okay, Marlena.
Yep, sure. So shall we start with the most typical day then?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. Well, I have to say that there is no typical day. The only difference is that, my work revolves around the banking practice. So working on, for example, working on pitches a lot. So let's say someone wants to build a solar plant in Afghanistan or Egypt or Saudi Arabia, and they're looking for obviously you have to have money to build that, so they're looking for lenders, sponsors, etc., and we would then pitch to do the legal advice for whether it's the lenders or sponsors and so on. So a lot of my work consists of pitch work. But I also manage a team, which is fantastic. I have a team of 2 people underneath me, and we're absolutely fantastic. And their development is one of my how do you say, pet projects at the moment. And in addition to that, I manage some strategic projects for the banking team in the Middle East, in just, you know, improving our reputation and all that. My most memorable moment with A&O, I have to say, it happened quite early on when I had just started. So the previous law firm that I worked for was very IP and tech heavy, so intellectual property, technology, and all that stuff. And I had very little experience in banking and projects. So one of our partners, we had an RFP come in, a request for a proposal. And one of the partners, so this is a big hotshot lawyer who does multi-million deals across the world. He travels probably 4 days out of the week. Well, used to, not now, obviously. You know, shoots around the region. And he took a good half an hour of his time to explain to me project financing 101. So it's like project financing for dummies. And so that I could do my job with the proposal better. And this kind of generosity is something that goes around A&O all through the firm. You can always ask for help, and people will offer you help even if you don't ask it. So that's one of the really, really great things about the firm.
That's great.
I mean,
and advice for young people, Marlena?
Yes,
yep.
Actually, yeah. So I have a cousin who's 16. So I'm going to give the same advice to you guys as I'm giving to her. Think hard. This is going to get a bit hippy dippy and deep, but think what is really important to you. So is it, you know, for example, financial stability? Is that important to you? Is it important to you to find solutions for, I don't know, climate change or I don't know, whatever it is? Try to think really hard what is important to you. Second of all, think about what kind of person you want to be. What are the traits in you that you like about yourself, right? Do you like the fact that you're, I don't know, generous with your friends? Or do you like the fact that you are, I don't know, I don't know, someone can give me an example.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So what are the traits that you like about yourselves, and cultivate those traits. And the third point kind of relates to that, because we all know the saying that you are the sum of seven people closest to you, right? So surround yourself with people who reinforce those traits in you.
Yeah, that's really well said. Marlena, I've got a question from you from Shabazz. Shabazz, good to see you. Hi, Marlena. Assuming you work closely with bankers, are there any characteristics or skills you think helps a banking analyst stand out and succeed when you're looking at it from their point of view, potentially? What impresses you, I suppose?
Well, the thing is, I don't work with bankers as such. I work with the lawyers who work with the bankers, right? So unfortunately, I don't have necessarily an answer for that.
No problem. And actually, well, I'll ask you the question in terms of what stands out in terms of a good lawyer. So you've got a mediocre lawyer and an amazing lawyer. What's the difference in a really concise way?
A concise... A stellar lawyer is not just someone who knows the law inside out, but who knows how to put it in the terms of the client, essentially answer the question, who cares? So the law says A, so what? Who cares? right? So answer the client's questions in a commercial, business savvy way that's, you know, highlights, for example, the risks or the risks of the client, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like that. And that's like Charlotte was saying, you know, that emotional intelligence is so important. It's interesting that you notice that in top lawyers. Tia, I'm going to come on to you next, please. It's your turn to go.
Yeah, sure. And I managed to unmute myself this time.
Very good. Thank you, Tia.
As well. So I echo what the ladies have said. There's no typical day for me. I feel really fortunate in the fact that I've got a very diverse role. I think I do spend 90% of my time talking. I'm on a lot of webinars and calls. So for instance, today, I think my role has moved on from an output-driven role to more of an advisory role. So I spent an hour talking to one of the partners today, thinking about how she can drive her own business plan forward and different ideas and ways that I could work with her to think about new sectors and clients that she wanted to focus on. In very similar to Nikki's role, I sit and work with different departments. So for instance, today I've had calls with the finance team, HR team, our legal project management team. So that's very typical of my role, that, you know, I'm in a way having to link the different departments together and working with the team, for instance, to launch a new product. One of the areas that I'm working on right now is that we've got a product from the London team, and I'm thinking about how we can repackage it and sell it to our clients across the Middle East. So working with the team here to try and tailor this product, and thinking about how we're going to launch it into the different markets, but making sure that we've got a regional flavor for that. So working on the full campaign for that, whether that might be, for instance, putting together a webinar to sell that to clients, thinking about the different marketing channels that we can reach to the clients, for instance, a social media campaign to launch the product, thinking about the marketing materials, whether that might be in the visual format or a podcast, or thinking about a thought leadership campaign, working with different departments, for instance, the PMO departments, thinking about if we can launch this product in our advanced delivery, which is a way that we can use tech services to enhance our legal offerings as well. So a very diverse role.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Tia. And what about, I was just going to say, just in the sake of time, just top tips for young people would be brilliant, please.
Just don't be afraid to take risk. And if you can, do move abroad and get a broad range of experiences. So I've lived in Australia, the UAE, London, and working for a global law firm, having that global perspective and being able to work across different jurisdictions and cultures does give you that advantage. So if you can, you know, don't be afraid to take a seat abroad, for instance. So that's one of my
great. Thanks, thanks, Tia. And just want to come to Jess finally. Thanks so much, Tia. And Jess, over to you. Thank you.
I think, yeah, consistently, there's not an ordinary day for me either within Peerpoint. As I mentioned earlier on, when I joined the team, we were in a bit of a startup environment, and so the range of what activities we were doing was quite broad. Now my role is very much focused on clients and client development, and on a daily basis I am speaking to clients either through video conferencing, either WebEx, Zooms, Microsoft Teams, whatever it will be, instead of doing those face-to-face meetings, speaking to consultants, lawyers about roles, as well as speaking to Allen Overy about what we're seeing in the market and what we're hearing, and joining the dots back to the business, or equally seeing whether there's an opportunity for us to work together there. I'm also involved on the marketing side, so look to make our offering relevant to clients through social media campaigns, primarily using LinkedIn, and also A&O's website, and also work with my colleagues in Peerpoint internationally. I think in terms of tips and advice, or what I'd recommend, I think be hungry and be interested, and all the tips that everybody's given on the call are brilliant. Have a think about what you want to do, but if it's challenging to really land on exactly what you want long term, remember your skills are often transferable, and it's what you get out of those opportunities that you can use and take on to other roles. You know, I think all of us have had stories where we've moved around and done different things, and it's about building your story in that process. So it's okay to change as long as there's a good solid reason and justification and story that goes behind that and supports it and leverages your skill set, really. And then I think when you're fortunate enough to secure roles, be hungry and get involved, you know, get to know other people, your peers, be interested to understand more about people, and do other things like pro bono, for example, or go to those events that mean that hopefully we'll be able to do those events in the future that mean that you get to meet other people within the same organisation that you're at. And so be interested, I think, is my headline of a recommendation.
I've been writing down the top tips, guys. I think it's the best we've had, actually. Like, there's some amazing top tips going on there. I just want to see if Harriet, if your microphone's working at the moment, we can give you a chance. Harriet.
I mean, it looks like it's working for me. Can you guys hear me?
It's not the best line. So should we just go with really briefly your typical day and top tips for young people, and really concise, if that's okay? We'll try and do that.
Yeah, I'll do as whistle stop as possible.
Thank you.
So a typical day it isn't really one, I think, as everyone else has said, but I think broadly what you would expect to work on as a sort of BD manager would be pitches to clients, research, targeting, prospecting, figuring out what content and communications to push out from your group. So obviously a lot at the moment is focused on COVID-19 and what our clients might want to hear from us about. So I've been working a lot on that. Memorable day, a while ago last week, I hit my 6-month anniversary, and I got a really nice gift from one of the partners in the groups who I've actually never met or spoken to, just to say thank you for work on a project. So that was pretty nice.
That's good.
Pretty good demonstration.
And just really concisely, Harry, your top tip, because the line's so bad, unfortunately. Sorry. Just your top tip.
I'm so sorry.
People? No problem.
Top tip, I think I'll just echo what others have said. So play to your strengths, but also play to your interests. So don't do something because you think it will help you get a certain kind of job. Do what interests you.
Guys, if you've got any questions for Harriet, put them in the chat box and she can answer them without the mic. But no, Harriet, thank you so much for getting through that. Guys, we do have different questions we want to get through. Really well done to our panelists there. That was pretty awesome. We've got about 10 minutes left. Well, I'm just going to go through them here. The ones who have put the names I'm going to go to first. Nikki, does being from a diverse background actually give you a potential advantage in applications given the way the market's moving? And that's an interesting question.
It doesn't
really briefly, Nikki, because it's a bit of a,
it doesn't give you an advantage in that we don't say we want quotas, but it doesn't give you a disadvantage. It's about a level playing field. And we've deliberately done things like the way that we do recruitment interviews. We've changed the way that we do those in the last few years to make sure that it is absolutely fair and equal, regardless of where you went to school, what your parents did, or anything like that. So it's absolute level playing field.
Brilliant. I've got a question here saying, here we go. My A-levels are English literature, history, politics, and have done an EPQ. I want to do a history degree before doing the SQE. Good luck with that, guys. I have not continued learning maths, and as you can see, I enjoy humanities and social sciences more. Would my application be seen as worse than someone who has done maths GCSE level 6? That's the hardest question I've ever read out in my life. I'm not sure what
the history degree.
Do the history degree, says Nikki.
So for me, I think it's about, as Harriet said, do something that you love. And yes. I think if you do something that you love and you continue to look for opportunities, you will succeed. You will find the right place for you and the right job for you in life. Whereas if you go and do a degree that you're not that interested in, it's 3 years of not that much fun. So, and also I think that more and more organisations are looking at people's characteristics. Yes, you've got to be academic for certain jobs and that kind of thing, but it's about who you are as a person. So doing what you love shows when you go to interviews and things like that.
Thanks. And just again, really concise, guys, just to get these questions in. Charlotte, we've been asked about the working environment. I just want to ask you, what's the difference maybe between New York and London and the working environment, just for that international flavour?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the kind of working days here are longer. So in New York and across America, they have less holiday days and they expect people to work longer hours. So that's taken some getting used to. And I think a lot of it, and the reason that I mentioned emotional intelligence earlier, in the UK, you could speak to a client and they'll spend the first 10 minutes talking to you about the weather and their kids and their life before they get around to telling you what they actually want. In New York, they want to go straight to brass tacks. They don't want to mess around. They don't want to hear how I've been and how my pets are and what the weather's like. They want to get straight down to business. So that's the difference that I've noticed so far.
Fantastic. Really, really good answer there. And Jess, I'll come to you next. Is networking important within the firm in order to work your way up? Because obviously you're in a big company, so that's a good question.
I don't think it's like an imperative to work your way up. I think it's important to build good relationships with a range of people from at all levels and across different divisions of the business in order to be effective in your role and to be considered for promotion. So I think it's helpful. It supports you understanding more about your organisation. You're working in the context of the market that you're operating in. But I don't think the networking to get promoted, I don't think necessarily like it's a clear, you have to do that. It's about being interested in building relationships and being seen to do a good job and delivering in your role.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jess. We're on a roll here. Here we go. Are there any first year schemes or work experience in BD and marketing at Allen Overy? Does anyone want to give any advice on that for young people inspired today? Potentially it's not an entry route level in, is that right? You have to have a bit of experience before you come in, or are there any youngsters in your teams, guys?
I think we have youngsters in the team. I think it's across the whole spread. We don't have a huge number of opportunities at any one time, but certainly there are junior people who come in. And I think the point we made earlier about people kind of moving jobs, I've certainly seen that. Although I haven't been at Allen Overy for long, I've seen people moving from one part of the firm to another. And as we've seen here, moving from one country to another. So I think there are opportunities.
And Nikki, on that front, like if I really wanted it and I was absolutely inspired by the session today, and this is what I want to do with my life, surely if I network or try and get my way in or try and meet somebody in the appropriate team, and surely there's a way for me to get in, isn't there somehow? What would you say, Nikki?
I would say that helps. I mean, certainly when, before I joined Allen Overy, I happened to know two people at the firm, and I absolutely got in touch with them before I came for interviews and things like that. So I think, learn about the organisation, find some interesting people, engage with them on relevant people on LinkedIn or something or other, just so that you can build a little bit of a connection with them. And I think, we absolutely don't support sort of nepotism where, it will be a partner's son or daughter who gets a job because of who they are. But showing that you are really interested in the firm and what it does and how it works and things like that has got to be a good thing.
By turning up to webinars like this, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
There we go. I'll put this question out to anyone. Does knowing any other language benefit working in an international firm like A&O? Does anyone have any experiences of knowing languages or it really helping somebody in their career?
Well, I speak Italian and French in addition to Finnish and English. I've also dabbled with 10 other languages, but I can't really say that I speak them. What I can say is that it helps you to build relationships in an international firm. So let's say there is a pitch that we need to do together with our Italian offices. I can pick up the phone, chat to the guys in Italian, and that naturally makes the relationship building a lot easier. Will it help you get the job? I don't know. I mean, I guess speaking multiple languages does show that you have a like an international aspect to your life already. So you're more suitable for an international firm. I'm not sure.
No, it's good. Thanks, Marlene. I'm going to go to Ellen, who asked Nikki about the best ways of getting your foot in the door, but I think we did cover that there. But maybe, Nikki, just hold that thought if you haven't got anything to add at the end. I'll come to you all towards the end, just to wrap up. Charlotte, question for you. Have you found it difficult adjusting to working in the US? Has it been tricky?
It has, because of COVID. I think suddenly in New York you have to wear a mask to do anything, and go everywhere. And
it's compulsory, isn't it? Yeah,
it is compulsory. Yeah. So that's been quite interesting, but it's the same for everyone in terms of the disruption. I think the biggest challenge is that 5-hour time difference. So having to kind of be really ruthless with my time now in the morning, so that I can speak to who I need to in the UK office. But otherwise, the folks in the Allen Overy New York office have been really welcoming. I think we're a really kind firm to each other. Everyone kind of looks out for each other, even if you don't know them. So on one hand, it's been challenging, but it's also really exciting. I've never worked abroad or done anything like this. So on a personal level, I would thoroughly recommend any opportunity you can to do any kind of travel with work.
It's pretty cool. I like it. And a question here, guys, if anyone can remember recently or anything that really made them stand out, how did you stand out in your interview to get your job? Is there anything that you thought you absolutely did brilliantly, a catalyst for change or getting your job?
The key thing is always research. Research,
okay. Brilliant.
Yeah, I had the same feedback after my interview from my boss, who said that everyone commented how prepared I was for the interview. And
research, preparation.
Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm gets you halfway.
Which, Marlene, you definitely have. Anybody else?
Yeah, quite a good question. The feedback that I got, why I got the role, was I had less experience than many of the people who applied for the role. And not necessarily all of the skills for the role as well, but they decided to go with me because I seemed like a very people person, and I think the focus of my role is just to talk to people and be quite client focused. So it's always about selling yourself and not just always your skills and your backgrounds as well. So just be yourself and just be authentic in the way that you come across.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. We're going to have to wrap up now, the last 2 minutes. I think some of us have got calls at 3 o'clock. Please do put in your plenary and any of your takeaways in the chat box, what you got from the session. Shabazz, thanks you straight in there. Thank you all. It's been really good to have this session. I just want to quickly read these, guys, what I thought I got from the session in terms of takeaways. Learn what you like and what you don't like from different jobs, okay? Get a job and learn from it. Get out there and do. It doesn't always have to be perfect. Think what is really important to you. What type of person do you want to be? Okay. Emotional intelligence and the importance of it. Don't be afraid to take risk. Be hungry and be interested. I think there's some amazing takeaways there and what the guys have shared with us. We've obviously got a session again next week where we are actually going to be speaking to some of the recent graduate trainees. So those of you that are asking specific questions about lawyers, solicitors, etc., what sort of entry routes that there are into the company, that's your session next week. Are there any final comments from any of our panelists? I'm not expecting you all to have a comment, but if there are, now's your time. That's absolutely fine. If not,
make the most of every opportunity you're given.
Thanks, Nikki. And I think that's a good note to end on. I'm just going to read out a couple of the, guys, I've not done my due diligence. Please do the type form there that I'll be told off otherwise. Please do the survey to tell us how you found this session. I'm just going to read out a couple of things here. Thank you for this. It's been really beneficial. I have to leave early. That's absolutely fine. I've got another webinar to attend, so people are keen. I learned you should pursue what matters to you. You should focus on clients and be authentic. You can move throughout the firm, be authentic. There we go. So a few takeaways there. Thanks very much to our panelists. Thanks very much to our students, guys. Well done again for being on. We've got more sessions happening throughout this week. Instagram Lives happening on Friday, and be back here same time next week for Allen Overy next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.